What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Good Wolf Project. I'm your host, Jerry Scarlato, and today I want to talk to you about 3 unknown ways you can regulate your energy. Specifically, how you can regulate your energy better in the second half of the day, because that's the part of the day where so many people crash and burn, if you will. I think you know well the feeling of having lunch and then just diving into this tired coma. And most of that has to do with blood sugar regulation. That's specifically what we're going to be talking about, is how you can regulate your blood sugar better so that you can not crash into that second half of the day and be able to be more productive and have more energy, bring more energy to your work and to your life and to your family in the second half of the day. Now, there's a good chance that that crash is going to happen to some degree, no matter how well you protect it, because it is the second half of the day. You've already been up for however long for the first part of the morning. So you're going to be tired, more tired in the second half of the day. That's a natural thing. That's a normal thing. And yet there's so many things that we can do to help to boost that up a little bit so that we don't be completely useless for an hour or two after lunch. And we don't feel like we just want to fall asleep sitting at our desk or sitting there even talking to somebody, feeling like we're ready to pass out. So there's definitely things that we can do to lift that up, and 3 of those things we're going to talk about today. Now, a free tip, completely free tip, which you know, but is worth suggesting or worth reminding you of, is not having sugary things at lunch and not having high carb and high fat things together at lunch. Some examples of that are French fries and white bread or potato chips, things along those lines. Also, on the sugary side, any type of candy or candy bar or snacky thing, anything like that, that again, high sugar and high fat together, especially, will just kill your blood sugar. It'll spike up and then it'll crash down real hard. And that's where that grogginess comes from and that tiredness really comes from. So that's a completely free tip. That is one of the simplest things that you can do. Again, I know you know that, but applying it is a completely different thing. So many people don't apply the things that they know. They have plenty of knowledge in their brain, but they don't have the application to follow through. So don't be the person that has the knowledge and doesn't apply. Apply the things. You are worth the effort. You are worth that output of being able to change your life and improve your life. Apply them to your life to make yourself better. So let's get into some of these strategies. Let's start with how we can, our first strategy, and that goes with how we can start our lunch with our muscles in our body prepared to take on glucose. Yes, to prepare your body to digest and to absorb glucose better. So strategy number 1 is to do 25 squats before lunch. 25 squats before you eat lunch, immediately before you eat lunch. It doesn't have to just be squats. I say squats specifically because what squats are utilizing are your biggest muscle groups. They're utilizing your glutes, they're utilizing your quads, they're utilizing your hamstrings to some degree. And because of that, those muscle groups, your muscles, whenever you use them before you eat, will more readily utilize and store glucose. And that's where we have that crash. Like I said, when your body doesn't absorb glucose and doesn't use it effectively, that blood glucose spikes up and then it comes down and it crashes way down. One of the simplest things that you can do to mitigate that is to prepare your body to absorb glucose, to prepare your body to utilize it. And when you actually do some form of exercise before you eat, and it doesn't have to be, that's why I said 25 squats. It doesn't have to be a 30-minute or hour-long workout. That's great and effective if that's what you can do. But just 25 squats can be enough to prepare your body and wake up your muscles, if you will, to absorb that glucose that you're going to have at lunchtime and to utilize that glucose. That's what a lot of what we're going to talk about comes down to is being able to regulate your blood sugar due to those carbohydrates that you're ingesting, due to those carbs that you're taking in. So that's strategy number one, is doing 25 squats before your lunch. Again, it doesn't have to be squats. It can be push-ups. It can be any kind of body weight exercise. It can even be exercise in and of itself. But typically, it's some form of weight training / resistance training that you want to do. Body weight training is a form of resistance training. You're just using your body weight as resistance. And that's what you want to do to activate those muscles to be able to absorb that glucose more effectively. So that's number one. Number two, the second strategy that you can utilize to better regulate your blood sugar is during the meal. During your lunch, and this is during any meal specifically, but during your lunch, have some sort of raw food during your lunch. And specifically, eat that raw food first. So the order in which you eat foods will define how your body absorbs them. Meaning, if you eat carbs first, they're going to get digested much quicker than if you eat, say, protein first. Protein, your body takes a longer time to break down. So if you eat protein first and then you eat your carbs second, those carbs are going to get digested slower. They will get released slower into your body. Raw foods gets digested even slower than protein does. It takes a while for your body to break them down because there's no pre-process going on. You haven't processed them in any way, even by simply cooking them. Now, raw food doesn't mean raw chicken or raw beef. Understand that. I'm not talking about raw meat here. What I'm talking about is vegetables, fruits, nuts. Those are the basic things that fit into that raw category. Some sort of vegetables, some sort of fruit, or some sort of nuts. And eating those at the beginning of your meal can help slow down the digestion of the rest of your meal, so that when you eat that carbohydrate, whatever it is, your blood sugar doesn't spike as high because it's not being absorbed and it's not being processed as quickly. And that's one of the magic things of having a certain combination of foods in your meals. When you do that, when you have combinations of foods and you do it effectively, especially having a raw food in your meal, then you regulate not only your blood sugar, but you also regulate the number of calories that you actually are using. Because the slower that a food digests, the less calories you're going to utilize of that food because your body's burning them as it's digesting them. So have a raw food at the beginning of your meal, some sort of vegetable, some sort of fruit, or some sort of nut. And it can't just be like one tiny little mini carrot. It has to be at least a cup of vegetables, or around a half a cup or so, a cup of fruit, or a small palm of nuts, something to that effect. Can't just be one or two little things. It has to be something of substance, but be careful with those nuts because there's lots of fat in them. You don't want to go overboard with those. So make sure that's a small handful of nuts if you go that route. But with the vegetables, you can eat as many vegetables as you want. And with the fruits, around a half a cup or so of fruits. Okay, so that's number two. So number one was some form of 25 squats before your meal. You can do push-ups. It can be any type of bodyweight exercise. Number two, have raw food with your meal, specifically at the beginning of the meal, so that it slows down the digestion and your blood sugar doesn't spike as much. And that leads to number three, after the meal. So you notice we've hit all 3 points: before meal, during meal, and after meal. You don't have to do all of these things. If you do, they don't take all that much time, so you could do all of them. So after the meal, what can you do to regulate your blood sugar better? Instead of sitting there, which is what most people do, get up and move for 10 minutes. It'd be great if you could get up and go for a walk for 10 minutes, whether that's outside. Now that it's becoming spring, it's a great time to go outside and walk and get some afternoon sun, which is another thing that's going to wake you up. But get up and move in some way, shape, or form. If you absolutely can't move and leave your desk, at least stand up. instead of just sit down, or at least stand up and rock back and forth a little bit, or do something instead of sit still. Because when you're sitting and your knees are bent and your hips are bent and you're in that posture, blood sugar can't flow through your body effectively. When you stand up, then it can flow a little more effectively. And especially when you're moving, your body can process both your food and that blood sugar a lot more effectively, and your blood sugar doesn't spike as high, and therefore the crash won't be as far down. And it's about a 10-minute time period. That's not a perfect number, but it's about a 10-minute time period that seems to be effective to be able to mitigate that blood sugar spike, if you will. So 3 simple strategies: before meal, during meal, and after meal, to help start to regulate your blood sugar and regulate your energy for the second half of the day. That's the part of the day where most people just waste a lot of time. If you notice, your focus is a lot worse on the second half of the day. You're much more likely to pick up your phone just offhandedly in the second half of the day, especially at night, because your focus, your attention, you've already done some work. And so your mind's just, it's a little harder for you to keep your focus and attention anyway. But especially when you have that sugar laden meal or that carb laden meal and that blood sugar drives you crazy, that does not help it at all. So these are just some very simple and effective things that you can do. Again, they don't take a whole lot of time when we're talking about. Let's go through them again, and we'll talk about how much time this is going to take you if you did all 3 of them. So the first one, before the meal, 25 squats. How long does it take you to do 25 squats? It might take you 30 seconds. If you go slow, it'll take you a minute. 25 squats, 1 minute it'll take. The second one, have something raw at every meal, specifically before your meal. If you're eating anyway, it doesn't take you any extra amount of time because you're eating anyway. So it's literally built into the process of what you're doing already. The second part, or the third part, post-meal, going for a walk post-meal, that's going to take the longest part, 10 minutes. So you're talking about an extra 11 minutes, maybe, of time to be able to regulate your blood sugar better, to be able to regulate your energy better, so that you can be more productive for the second half of your day, so that you can keep your focus longer, so that you can get your tasks done better, so that you can be more energy prepared for your family when you get home from work, so that you can be ready to do something more effectively when you get home from work. If you're wanting to get into a project, or you're wanting to try something new, or you're wanting to learn something after work, you can be more mentally ready for that, more mentally sharp for it. If you do these basic strategies, 11 minutes is all we're talking about. 11 extra minutes of work around your lunch to be able to have a better second half of the day. What if you got an extra couple hours of work into the second half of the day? I'm not talking about adding extra hours. I'm talking about making time, making use of that time. There's the amount of time people waste because they're picking up their phone, because their mind's just not into the day. That's what I'm talking about, is actually being able to utilize the time that you have, that you're already being a part of. So if you just take 11 minutes around your lunchtime, it's amazing. You'll add a couple of hours. You'll be more productive for the time that you're using. And that's the point. How do you get more out of the time that you're using? I'm not talking about adding more hours to the beginning and end of your day, getting up earlier or staying up later. I'm talking about being able to utilize just the time that you're already up more effectively. And if it's 11 minutes, that's all we're talking about, just 11 minutes around your lunchtime, that is a no-brainer. So take advantage of these strategies, great things for you to do to be able to get more out of your life. Enjoy it, my friends. Thank you so much for checking this out. Remember, make sure that you go and review this show. The more reviews we get, the more we get to reach others like you. So thank you so much for reviewing. And until next time, go out and win today.